Chances are you've heard of Halley's Comet.
I just saw Halley's Comet your way.
Halley's Comet.
They're on the lookout for Halley's, we'd rather say Halley's Comet. It's heading for a regular rendezvous with Earth.
Halley's Comet, the celestial body named after Edmund Halley, who in 1758 somehow, someway determined that the 5-mile wide and thick clump of dust and ice comes and goes through our zip codes every 75 to 79 years or so. Chances are you may not have heard of Mercury's Comet, the 3,000-pound or so clump of iron, plastic, and steel that the Ford Motor Company's late and most oftentimes not-so-great Mercury division built and sold from 1960 through 1977. Mercury's Comet didn't start out as a Mercury, but rather as an Edsel. Edsel, the short-lived division of the Ford Motor Company, launched for model year 1958. Named in honor of Henry Ford's son and the father of then-Ford President Henry Ford II, Edsels were to bridge the price gap between Ford and Mercury models. Due to a recession, marketing, and a multitude of issues with the cars, most notably their styling, sales weren't a third of their projections. Sales were worse by a third in 1959, and the Ford Motor Company discontinued the division just after the 1960 model year began. However, while the big Edsels got shelved, Lincoln Mercury dealerships continued to sell the compact Ford Falcon-based Comet introduced that year. What was planned at first to be the Edsel Comet was a Ford Falcon with a longer wheelbase, a somewhat nicer interior, and a larger trunk. Edsel Comets featured vestigial tail fins as well. And the little car with the big car styling sold like fried Twinkies at the county fair. Just don't call it a Mercury Comet. Not just yet anyway. Don't call it an Edsel either, as Comets were sold without any badging other than Comet labels. In 1962, though, the Comet officially became a Mercury. Since Mercury's Comet was, essentially, a fancy Ford Falcon, when the Ford division updated the Falcon for 1964, the Comet was updated as well. The new Comet was, without any of the odd 50s styling details the original had, was, dare I say, almost quite handsome. See, Mercury stylists were taking cues from General Motors. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, as they say. Now, at the time, the prevailing thinking in Detroit was that bigger cars meant bigger profits, and starting in 1966, Mercury's Comet became a midsize car when it was moved to the Ford Motor Company's intermediate chassis that was also under the Ford Fairlane. And when Ford updated their intermediate chassis for 1968, Mercury had to do so as well. What's more, in 1968, Mercury's Comet was now the base model Mercury Intermediate and available only as a sports coupe. Somewhat curiously, Mercury's Comet disappeared for 1970, eclipsed by the Mercury Montego. Mercury's Comet reappeared in 1971 as a compact again when Mercury began lightly disguising Ford's Maverick. The Maverick itself was a rebodied Ford Falcon. Everything old is new again, as the saying goes. Critics were not kind. They damned both the Maverick and Comet for their cheap-looking interiors, squishy, unsupportive seats, slow, sloppy handling, and weak brakes. They also noted that there was little difference between a Maverick and a Comet. They had kinder things to say about its styling, especially the coupes. The four-door sedans, which rode on a longer wheelbase, less so. Trust me, I know all about it since my first car was this dumpy 1974 Comet 6-cylinder four-door sedan. Worst car I ever had, and that's saying something since over the years I've had some doozies. This version of Mercury's Comet had the longest production run, with Mercury selling it through 1977. If you're of a particular vintage, when someone says Mercury Comet, one of these is what you probably think of. And while Ford has been calling these things Maverick since 2021, we'll never see another Mercury Comet since the Ford Motor Company Deep Sixed the Mercury division in 2011. Well, we'll never see a new Mercury Comet, as there are still plenty of Mercury Comets floating around out there.
I just saw Halley's Comet.
By the way, Halley's Comet is set to return in 2061. See you then. You bring the charcuterie board, I'll bring the kombucha. Hey, thanks for watching my little video on Mercury's Comet. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, and comment below.